After 2 weeks learning Japanese from zero, I tested different techniques and approaches, and some worked much better than I expected, while others were not as useful. So today I want to rank them based on what has helped me the most when learning Japanese. This means that this is not going to be a theoretical or an abstract ranking based on research. It's going to be based on what I experienced that it was most useful. And it will be a mix of actual learning techniques, but also some approaches and activities that I used during the process. I will start with the first thing that I did on day 1 of learning Japanese, and that was understanding the basics of the language. This included learning about the writing systems, the pronunciation and phonetics, some basics about verb conjugation, and also my dearest particles. It is useful, and it's like learning the rules of the game, but in a way it also prepares you for what is going to come after it. However, I think that I will give it a C. Not because it was not useful, but because I spent far too much time of it. And if I were to start again, I would just spend around 5 to 10 minutes going through the most important elements, and then I would revisit them later with real-life examples of the language. Next is dual coding. In this technique, you are going to combine words with images or visual associations to make them easier to remember. And I found this extremely useful for learning the writing system with the kanas and the kanji, because there are so many symbols, some are very similar, others are completely different, so creating visual images help me remember it more easily. This being said, I will give it a B because despite its usefulness, its application it can be a bit limited and it applies to a small part of learning the language. Next is spaced repetition. This technique involves reviewing information multiple times over several days or weeks instead of trying to learn everything at once. For this purpose, I've been using the application Anki, and I created flashcards with the content that I needed. And this has been one of the core elements of my method, and I cannot recommend it enough. I use it daily, and the application automatically schedules what I should review based on my answers, whether I got something right, wrong, or I found it difficult. So I give it without a doubt an S. It's simple, easy to use, and it produces huge benefits. I even use it while commuting, and it has been one of the key elements of my progress. We continue with learning in context. This means learning words and sentences as they are used in real situations, instead of just learning them in isolation. What this entailed in practice is that instead of memorizing a list of hiragana, katakana, or abstract elements, I started directly with the real-life examples, things and sentences that I would actually see or use in Japan as a tourist. And this really helps because it is more meaningful, it is more motivating, and it is one of the reasons for which I give it an A. Next is something that is very important but not always known, and I'm talking about metacognition. In simple terms, metacognition means being aware of what do you want to learn, how do you learn, and adjusting your approach based on what is working and what is not. For me, this has been the key. Having a clear goal of what I want to learn and constantly checking whether I'm on track is one of the things that allowed me to very quickly change the strategy when I realized I was going in the wrong direction and refocus on what really matters. In a sense, it works like a compass, and it is absolutely necessary because you can use all the right techniques, but if you are learning things that are not aligned with your goal, then it is not very useful. And that's why I give it an S. Now, one of the most powerful techniques I've used is free retrieval. This means trying to recall information from memory without looking at the answer and without having any sort of cue. And it is probably one of the most uncomfortable, hardest technique, but also the one with the biggest impact. And it works 2 ways. First, it is a very strong way to build long-term memory. But second, it also changes how you learn. Because if you know that you will test yourself with a blank page, then you pay much more attention to details when you are studying. And this is why I give it definitely a S+. Next is blogging, making these videos. It's been useful, because it has allowed me to track my progress and reflect on what I'm learning, which is in itself a form of metacognition. It also forces me to organize my thoughts. However, it takes quite some time, and for me personally, since I need to upload the videos and it requires a bit extra effort, I think that I could be using my time more effectively with other strategies. And that's why I would give it a space in between B and C. And finally, using AI. I've used ChatGPT as my main source of content, and it allows me to personalize my learning in a way that would be difficult otherwise, especially with the limited time that I have before the travel. So of course you need to be careful, and I'm always aware that it can make mistakes, it can hallucinate, so you need to guide it properly with the right prompts. But overall, my experience so far has been very positive, so I will give it an A. A key message I want to make very clear is that the biggest difference did not come from using just one technique, but from combining them in the right way. It is possible that you are watching this video and you feel overwhelmed, you are not sure where you can start. So if you need to choose just one technique, I would recommend picking a spaced repetition with flashcards. It is easy to use and probably the best place to start. And then, as you feel comfortable using it, you can start incorporating some of the other techniques. And I still have quite a journey ahead of me, so I will keep testing to see how I can do this combination and use the right techniques better. This is just week 2, so if you want to see how this evolves, subscribe and see you in the next one.